Hello there, I'm Denise Richardson, and you're listening to Fuel for the Spirit. Well, you know me from the Pledge Drive on PBS, and I'm a proud member of the AM 570, the Mission WMCA family. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a special edition of Fuel for the Spirit this evening. It's in memory of Patricia Hunt, who went home February 27th of this year, and whose going home celebration of her life filled a church in Roanoke, Virginia on March 9th. Well, I knew Mrs. Hunt because I'm a very close friend of one of her daughters, Ruth Hunt, and came to discover that Mrs. Hunt and I had the very same birthday, Bastille Day, July 14th. Well, so many families have that one beloved member who everybody adores, and that was Patricia. So how does the Hunt family find fuel to go on without their mom? Well, you're about to hear that with my guests. And they include Ruth D. Hunt and Angela Hunt Phipps, both daughters. You'll hear from Dr. Gloria Ramsey, and you'll hear from Ronald Watford. Thank you so much for being with us. Ruth and Angie, thank you both. I call Angie affectionately Angie instead of Angela. But tell me about your mom. Yeah. And when she was 91, you recorded her, but you wanted to capture her life.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, Denise. Yes, I was blessed to have the opportunity to record my mom and just take her down memory lane to just discuss how her life unfolded. I wanted to have something to remember her by.
And so let's talk about her life and where she lived, because when she left us, she was in Roanoke, Virginia.
Yes. Well, my mom was born in Bramwell, West Virginia. Of course, you know, July 14th, 1927. And she was the oldest of 9 children. My grandmother was, her background was from Tennessee, and my grandfather was from Virginia. After my mom's grandmother passed away, shortly after she was born, the family moved back to Glade Springs, Virginia, which is in southwest Virginia, in the mountainous part of the country. And she went into a country environment, and she always talked about her Cherokee roots and that her people were from the land and, you know, what they had in the backyard or the front of the yard, and they ate off the fat of the land. So they grew their fruits and vegetables, and they cooked, and my grandmother used to cook in firewood. That was a tradition at that time. And when the family moved to Roanoke, Virginia in the 1940s, my grandmother had to adjust to cooking in a firewood as opposed to cooking on the lead belly stoves. But they were excellent cooks, my grandmother and my mother. And so my mother had the opportunity to meet my father, who, when he came home from World War II, his sister lived right next door to her, and he saw this beautiful lady walking home from work in the evening, and he caught her eye, and I guess the rest would be history.
Well, let me just inject here. They were courting back in the day.
Oh, absolutely.
And her father was not all for it, because this is his little girl.
His firstborn girl. And so he was very strict, but yet and still she would meet early in the morning before she had to go to work. She and my father would meet downtown, and they would walk during, I guess you call it the market. And my grandfather was coming through one morning and saw the two of them holding hands. And my mother says my father let her hand go. My mother saying he let her hand go. But he said, mighty fine morning, you're out so early. So, of course, they fell in love. And as I said, my grandfather was very strict, and my father came to New York so he could study art. He was an artist, and he went to art school, Art Institute in New York. And my mother began writing letters, and the courting happened. And my mother asked could she go visit her aunt, my grandfather's sister, who lived in Washington, D.C. And she said she was shocked that my grandfather let her go. So she went. And my father began to court her, coming back and forth from New York to D.C. And she asked her aunt, can I go visit him this time? And she said, yeah, she was shocked that she would allow her. When she came to visit her, she never went back. Oh. They eloped.
So let's hear what Mom had to say about that.
I went to Brooklyn, and we got our license. You had to go down to the city hall. Mm-hmm. And there was somebody right there to marry you, waiting to get the business. And he was from Quincy Street, a minister. And so we got our license, and then we told Jim that we were going to get married, his brother. And we did. We went to his house. He had you to come there to marry you. And we went there and we got married. And then I ended up in Brooklyn and started having a family.
And Angela is a member of that family. So what are you thinking when you hear Mom's voice?
Oh, it just brings back her vibration, the memory of her. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to hear that story again coming from her.
So tell me, Angie, talk about the fact that there were 8 children originally in your family, 2 of whom left. They passed. Talk a little about that family. And then Ruth, jump in here.
Mm-hmm. From when, it was 8 of us, and, we had the girls' room and the boys' room, and I talked about this earlier. And my mom was a very kind-hearted person. She really led her family by example with, her values, her respect, kindness. She was very forgiving and a very honest person. And she really was a friend. And to know her was to, have her friendship. And you didn't get that right away as a young kid, but as you matured into a young adult and a woman, she really was a great friend to have.
Yes.
And, she shared all of her values with us and with other people that she would meet along the way if she got to, to know them. She would talk to them just like she would talk to us. If you had an issue that was going on, it was nothing for her to take out the time to try to hear you and to guide you. So I just, she didn't need a stranger. Growing up as a little girl, we would walk, to different destinations, and as we would go along, she would speak to everyone. And I was very young, maybe 7. And one day we stopped at a corner at the street light to wait for the light, and she just strummed up with this conversation with this lady. And so when we walked up, I said to her, I said, "Ma, why are you just talking to all these people?" I said, "They're strangers. You don't even know them." And she says, "Angela, it doesn't cost you anything to be kind or to say hello to someone." So those were just a few of the things that she would stop and impart with us as, we grew into adults. It was just who she was, and people took to her like that.
So she did speak to everyone, and that I had the same experience. Of course, I'm 7 years older than Angela, so I got my lesson earlier. And we would come out of the building together, going to the grocery store. 'Cause my mother was a cook, so she would cook food every day, fresh, that came from the grocery store.
Let me interject here. You haven't had a meal until you've had a Hunt family meal. Let's go on.
And she would start speaking to the people as we came out the building. They would with 2 benches on both sides of the walkway, and she would say, "Hello, good morning, good morning." And I would say, after we passed them, "Well, you're speaking to that person. Do you know that person?" And she said, "No, I don't know that person." I said, "Well, why are you speaking to everyone?" She said, "Because it's nice to be nice, and that is what we do. And I want you to speak to everyone when you come out. You say good morning." So those were my lessons, that you say good morning and good night, and I guess I have her personality because I do speak to everyone.
oh yeah.
Listen, when I walked down the street with Angie after, I was a young lady and she was young, she said, "I don't want to walk down the street with you because you have to stop and talk to everybody."
We couldn't have a private conversation because it would be interrupted every 2 blocks. 2 steps, I should say.
Now, you kids grew up in the projects, the Albany projects in Brooklyn. Let's talk about that, you guys.
Oh, well, yes, we did grow up in Albany houses. Actually, when my parents moved into Albany houses, I was really 9 months old. And we didn't I broke my bottle because we had glass bottles at that time. And once I broke the bottle, I started drinking out of a cup at 9 months old. I didn't get a chance to get my sucking. I was deprived. But anyway, most people who moved in the projects at that time were servicemen. They opened up to servicemen, and they were families. And so we were influenced. There was a lot of influences because there are many different families. But in those days, our next door neighbor was Jewish. The next door neighbor on the other side was Italian. They had mixed us up in a way that we were very interactive with one another. People shared their recipes. They shared their cooking. People from South Carolina were in the buildings, and they would say they were Geechees, or people from North Carolina. There were a couple of people from Puerto Rico. So we had a nice diversity in those years, in the very early years in the 50s.
Angela, what do you remember?
That's true. We did. We had people from all over. That was really the people that came from the North Ward migration. And they were from all over. We had Polish on in another apartment on that same floor, and it was just a togetherness. I really miss that. I talk about that with my husband sometimes because it's just it doesn't exist like it once did. And you could go borrow a cup of sugar from someone, or a potato or whatever it may be, and it was just like second nature. People just looked out for one another. They, you had like 20 parents in one building. If they saw you outside doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing, you literally wanted to beg them not to go home and tell your parents, because that's what the community was all about.
Yes. And then we were very blessed that St. John's Recreation Center opened in 1955. They had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. They had basketball, but every type of sport. And my father was, very adamant that we all learn to swim. And we were on the swim team. So we really had a wonderful childhood. I mean, listen, we had gangs at that time, too, which it sort of died out. And I guess maybe it doesn't die out because you still have gangs today. But my father was a very, very strict and a protector.
That's an understatement. Go ahead. Yeah. Tell the story.
We never really we were always afraid if someone did something to us, because we were afraid to tell Daddy, because we knew if we told him, he might kill him, They were never going to bother us again, that's for sure.
So give me a good example of that, because you have a couple of great stories.
Well, once we were coming from a swim meet, had been swimming, and was some guys from the gang who was in the bleacher above we had an Olympic-sized pool, and he had words with my sister, and he spit on her. And the gentleman who was a nice guy on the swim team as well, he tried to protect her, but they told him that they would beat him up and down the street if he tried to jump in. So the guy hit my sister, and then we were like, oh my God, he hit her. We were afraid to go and tell my father. And of course, we went and told my father, and he said, told my brother, get your shoes on, let's go. Got his knife, and he went to get another neighbor, a young gentleman who was older than us, but he knew the gang. It was called the Chaplains, the Albany Chaplains at the time. Mm-hmm. So for any of you old timers, I know that you know what we're talking about. And the Corsair Lords were in Kingsborough Project, which was about 7 or 8 blocks away from us, where our junior high school was. Well, my father came downstairs. He wanted the leader of the gang. He didn't want the gentleman who hit, not the gentleman, the juvenile delinquent. Yeah, the thug or the juvenile delinquent that hit her. He didn't want him. He wanted the leader of and at that time the guy's name was Flip. I want Flip. Tell Flip to get here, because he wanted to pull the knife out, but they wouldn't snitch on him. So he just showed them all the knife and said, if any of you ever touch, you see all these children, these Hunt children, if any of you ever touch my kids, I will cut your head off and let it roll in the gutter. They were all, Mr. Hunt, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
And the rest is history, yes. You can say. There was also a young man in the community who was a good friend of your family, Ronald Watford. He speaks about your mother as though she is alive now, but she will be forever alive in his life. Ronald Watford, thank you so much for being with us. Tell me what your perception of Patricia Hunt was.
My perception is she was my vision of a Donna Reed, or Leave It to Beaver mom. She was that mom that everybody in the neighborhood would look up to and in their own mind say, I wish my mom could be like her. She was that warm and nurturing mother that everybody longed for.
Tell me what you saw when you saw her.
I saw a certain warmth. I saw an inner beauty. Although she was physically beauty, she would downplay that. She was not a vain individual, but that warm and nurturing, caring person came out of her. Always tender, always gentle, always looking to be there for you. You always felt a certain amount of comfort when you were in her presence.
And she was someone that, sorry. And she was someone who included you, she and her husband included you in activities.
Absolutely. She would take us to the dances held by the Masonic Lodge, the Gay Hot Ballroom. Mm-hmm. She was an example of what young people should be, particularly a young lady, how to dress, how to talk, how to carry yourself, how to conduct yourself in public, always being respectful of yourself and others.
Yes, and you all had to be very respectful when you came to her house, too, because you had to take your hats off when you came in the door. And my mother would always say, I don't care what the girls outside are doing, you will not be doing that in this house. I was raised in a Southern household.
Angie?
That's very true. She would say, you are going to carry yourself as ladies. And, certain things she just expected from you. And you are not going to behave like anyone else that you thought that you admired at that time or whatever. It's just, she wasn't having it. And she was, she had a certain style, and she had certain limitations as far as how far you could go or how short your dress could be. There were just rules and regulations that she gave that are important today. We had to abide by
them. We had to abide by them.
Exactly.
We had to go to church on Sunday or not go outside at all. Or you couldn't go out at all if you didn't go.
Now, Ronald, you were responsible for her first job.
Yes, I happened to be employed at the Brooklyn Public Library in Grand Army Plaza, and an opening came up. And one of those days, I was at the house for dinner. But her door in the kitchen was always open. And I said to her, Mom, there's an opening at the Brooklyn Public Library. Would you like to work? She said, yeah, that'd be very interesting. I'll try that. And lo and behold, she came out on her own, and that was it.
Yeah, but your father wasn't all that thrilled with her working.
Was she?
Oh, no.
Angie?
What did she say when she got to work, Ronald?
She was elated. She said, I could use the time away and I could use the money. And this is very interesting. And mind you, when she laid the law down to you, she did it with a smile. She didn't... She said, you all are not going to have your daddy getting on my case because I want you all to do such and such and such. And she did it so warmly. And that was the good part about it. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She didn't raise her voice.
No.
Calm and cool. And you knew who the boss was. I mean, her stature, her demeanor, like I said, it was warm and giving.
You've said, Ronald, that although you love your mother, you wish your mother were more like Pat Hunt. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I come from a family. My mom had 7 sisters. They were all just as beautiful as Miss Hunt, but they were vain. Whereas Mrs. Hunt was not vain. Her beauty was not what she wore on her shoulder. Her heart was what showed. And that was very nurturing.
On that note, Ronald, I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Is there anything you want
Thank
to
you.
say?
The pleasure is mine.
Is there anything I'm sorry, Ruth Hunt just asked, is there anything else you would like to add?
Just that, to me, she embodied the phenomenal woman that Maya Angelou spoke about. She was everything. She was the wind beneath their wings. Like I said, to have the skill set to manage 8 children, and the third are 8 children and Jack, and manage a household and get everybody together, deal with those different personalities. That was a manager. That was your CEO. That was your CFO. So she held it down.
True.
I
Ronald.
love her dearly. Love her dearly.
Thank you again, Ronald.
My pleasure.
Now we've got to talk about your mother. I haven't told people this is Fuel for the Spirit. This is memorial to Patricia Hunt, a fabulous woman who left us in February but will never leave our hearts. Her birthday is July 14th, which is my birthday. It's one of the reasons we're doing this, because we had that in common. And I have to share that in preparation for this show, I was on the phone actually talking to Angie, and I had this aroma of food around me that really smelled really, really good. And there was nothing going on in my kitchen. And I'm not situated in an apartment where I could smell food from someone else's apartment. So I swore that Pat was in the house this morning. But we can't not talk about Pat and food and Pat and clothes. And I think you both can take that away, you and Angie. Go ahead, Ruth.
Well, she was a wonderful cook. An absolutely wonderful cook, and she got that from her mother. My grandmother was a wonderful cook as well, even though she said she never really worked with her mother or cooked in the kitchen with her mother, but she could make some macaroni and cheese, collard greens. I mean, we grew up on staple food. I said I would never eat beans and cornbread again in my life because that was one of the staple meals that we had. And one day my brother made some lima beans, and I said, "Oh my God, these lima beans are delicious. You made them?" He said, "Yes, I make them all the time." I said, "I swore I would never make lima beans again after I left home." And I make lima beans every winter, all during the winter months, and they are delicious.
Now, I know that Angie cooks. For me, I'm a pastry girl. Oh, Angie's cupcakes are to die for. But you learned to cook from your mom, like Ruth did.
Yes.
I did. The pastries were really my specialty.
Yes.
And in our neighborhood, she was really known for her potato salad and her homemade rolls. They would request that from her growing up, as a kid. Yeah. But her apple peach cobbler is to die for.
Yes.
We have had so many experiences with different people, so many funny experiences where people try to hide it.
Get online and get it. Or if you walk away and got to go to the bathroom. We had a picnic once. Go to the bathroom, come back, and where's the pie? I mean, it would be gone. As soon as, when she would take it out, everybody got their spoon.
You knew to get online because you may miss it. Go ahead.
What were the values that you both think of when you think about the family? What were you told to do as a family? And we have just 3 minutes, but what were the highlights of those values? What should you do for each other?
Well, we had to love one another. We had to get along with one another. You know, we didn't fight. Mm-hmm. She didn't want us fighting with one another. And we had to be respectful. We had to have family gatherings. That was very important. No one could go spend the night during Christmas or Thanksgiving. Those are the main holidays in our household. So if you want to go visit someone or have dinner with someone else during those holidays, you could not do it. We had to have those holidays were together. Those are very important holidays that we spent together.
She really wanted us to be supportive of one another. You know, if someone had something great going on, she wanted you to be able to be available if you could. And if something that wasn't really a great situation, she probably would expect you to be there even quicker for that. So those are, most of the things that Ruth mentioned, and that what I just said would be her key things that she would expect from any of us, whether it's the girls or the guys in the family.
Joining us now is Gloria Ramsey, who's the Associate Dean of Diversity at Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing, who's a close friend of Ruth Hunt's and knew Patricia. Hello there. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you so very much. It's an honor to be asked to comment. My memory of Mrs. Hunt really stems from a poem that was a poem that I don't know the author, but it's called Drinking from My Saucer. And there's a line there that says, "May I never be too busy to help others bear their loads." And Mrs. Hunt, 17 years ago, when she was in the midst of her own grief with the loss of her husband, my mother was dying, and she, on that day, really had me and adopted me as her daughter, but yet from another mother. So her love and support and kindness and caring was extended beyond her own children to include me in her fold, and that's my favorite memory.
Dean Ramsey, thank you so much for being with us. And I think now that it is appropriate that Patricia Hunt has the last words.
I love people, and I don't meet a stranger, and I'll talk to anybody, and I love those people, and they love me. I can say that through it all, I had a marvelous life, and I'm very proud of my children.
She really was very proud of all of you, and I'm tearing up myself because she accepted me as another daughter, and I loved you, Patricia Hunt. Thank you so much for your life. Thank you to the Hunt family and friends for sharing your special memories of their mom and their friend. Thank you, Ethel Patricia Hunt, for coming our way and brightening many of our days in the process. So you've been listening to a special edition of Fuel for the Spirit. If it's 8:30 on Saturday night, it's time for Fuel for the Spirit.
It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let